Hey, I'm Sarah, and this is the Goddess in Training podcast. This isn't about being perfect or polished or having it all figured out. This is about what happens when you actually start listening to your body, your intuition, your patterns, your truth. I'm asking big questions and having real conversations, sometimes messy and sometimes magical, with people who've lived through it, grown through it, and still don't have all the answers. If you've ever doubted yourself, betrayed your gut, or wondered if you're the only one, you're not. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to another episode of Goddess in Training. I'm your host, Sarah, and today I'm sitting down with someone who has truly walked the path of unlearning and made it her life's work to help others do the same. Mihaela Telecan grew up in communist Romania where food wasn't a marketing decision, it was a way of life. Seasonal, local, fermented, nose to tail. No food labels, no government guidelines, just the wisdom passed down through generations of women who knew how to nourish a family. She went on to study veterinary medicine, then nutrition, then functional and integrative medicine, layering ancestral wisdom with science to create something that actually makes sense for the body we're living in. In this conversation, we talk about what food actually is, and that what most of what's in the grocery store actually isn't. We talk about unlearning the fear around fasting and fat. We talk about longevity not as a checklist, but as vitality you carry with you until your last breath. And we talk about her cure framework: connect, unlearn, redefine, experiment, and elevate, which honestly is a roadmap for so much more than just nutrition. This one touched on something I've been sitting with lately: how much of our disconnection from our bodies is really a disconnection from our intuition. I think you're going to feel that too. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Goddess in Training. I'm your host, Sarah, and today I'm here with my friend Mihaela Telecan, who I met through another friend, and I love with the podcast how my world and my circles are expanding from friends to their friends, and it just is creating this web of healers and goddesses that I am just incredibly excited about. So, Mihaela, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, your focus has been on food originally. Tell me more about your path getting to where you are now, where you're now talking more about overall wellness and hormones and movement and integrating the whole holistic picture into people's lives.
So I started with food, like you said. Upon moving to United States, I decided to go to school to change careers. And I'm from Romania originally, or born in Romania, and became a Floridian 26 years ago this month. And in Romania, I studied veterinary medicine. But as I was going through vet school and, trying to envision me as a vet, I kept saying, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think I'm going to pursue this as a career. But of course, as any good girl would do, I finished the school. I did work as a veterinarian in a laboratory for diagnosis, not with direct animals, but rather with samples of blood and stool coming from animals. And I had the opportunity to move to United States. And when I arrived here, I thought to myself, I'm going back to school, but it's not going to be back to veterinary medicine because my heart wasn't in it. It was more of a rational decision to go to vet school, which looking in hindsight, it was a great thing, a great experience to go through the school and to learn everything about animals and human included, because we learn everything and comparative everything, anatomy, physiology, all that. But anyway, when I moved to United States after about 2 years, I said, okay, I'm going back to school. If I had better advising, I would have gone more into like maybe naturopathic medicine, because I always had an interest in human health and performance and prevention of diseases rather than being reactive and trying to correct something that already happened. At the time in Florida, and it was no online schools. They were not really recognized. But like I said, this was like about 20. Now it's 24 because it was about 2 years after I moved to the United States. So the best next option I had to doing something that I was passionate about was nutrition school. So I went to the dietetic school. I did a master's in nutrition. I did it not with the goal of working in a hospital to help people that are already sick, but rather to work in prevention and wellness, and one day to have my own practice. So I did work a little bit in a hospital as an outpatient dietitian, but in parallel with my dietetics program, I studied functional medicine and functional nutrition, integrative medicine. Eventually, after I had my son, I opened my own practice. So it was a journey of learning and education acquired. And of course, that all always went in parallel with my own healing journey. I had the personal interest in how, again, how we heal if we are already ill, and more importantly, how we prevent getting sick and how we prevent premature aging. Although, I was young when I started this journey, I was always interested in how can I preserve what I already have. I was blessed with good health and keep myself youthful in mind, body, and spirit for as long as I can. So it was kind of an inner drive with curiosity that all led to where I am now and at this stage in my life. So and I think that's how usually happens for most of us. We kind of merge a personal interest with the education component because it's kind of how we are taught, right? We are taught by the system to lean on something outside of us, the science that has the answers. And then as we go through life, we realize that, well, the body has its own wisdom and has the answers. We eventually find the way to self-help and helping others if that's part of our calling by putting the two together. And I think that's what I did.
Going back to growing up in Romania, are there ways that you grew up that was more holistic, it just inherently more kind of connected to health in a way that maybe isn't present for kids growing up here in the United States?
Great question. So indeed, when I moved to United States, it was interesting because I had my whole life experience I was 28 when I moved to US. And then I was exposed to a completely different way of living and eating. And I was thinking to myself, wow, this is kind of like an experiment. If somebody wants to experiment on humans to see what it is to have everything ready, done for you, to have everything conveniently available, what would happen to human race, right? Those were the thoughts going through my young mind. Because growing up in Romania, indeed, was extremely different. And especially because Romania was under communism for most of my upbringing. I was 17 going 18 when the communist regime was abolished. So I grew up with lots of restriction. And because we didn't have a food industry that worked for the population, whatever food industry we have, whatever we produce was mostly to be exported. So we had nothing of packaged processed food. So everything we ate was local, locally grown, and seasonal, obviously. And we were canning, doing lots of,
Mm,
preserves for the winter. In the fall, we would put vegetables and fruits to eat over the winter because nothing was coming from another country. We didn't have supermarkets with fresh
right.
fruits and vegetables all year round. So yes, in that sense. Then when you look what happened today, I would say since maybe 2015, bone broth became the latest discovery, right? And fermented foods and eating nose to tail, eating organ meats, all of that. I grew up with all of that. For
Right.
me, it was just like, of course. Yes,
Uh,
and of course. To give you a silly example, when I moved to United States and I went to the supermarket and I bought milk, I was like, where is the cream on this milk?
right.
I was waiting for the cream to float on top. And
Uh-huh.
I couldn't wrap my head around that the milk is homogenized, it's like destroyed, broken down, all the components. So it all becomes like one solution. With growing up, cream floated on top and you had the rest, the milk on the bottom. So yeah, those are things that now, and I'm happy to see that now in United States and all over the modern industrialized world that was taken over by the food industry have like a go back to basics. Traditional eating, which involved fermentation, which involved eating everything of what the animal has to give. Once you sacrifice an animal with gratitude for giving its life to you to have sustenance, you want to use everything. The skin
Hmm.
to make clothing or bags or shoes, and it nose to tail.
Hmm.
So yeah, in that sense was very different. And another thing that was different, if I may add one more thing, food or nutrition education was not coming from the government. We didn't have a government to give guidelines to what people should eat. All of that was the job of the family. The mother, the grandmother, the great grandmother were passing down the knowledge that
Hmm.
came from generation to generation, how to make the sourdough. Everything was sourdough. Now, oh, once in a while you find a bakery that says that they make sourdough. Maybe it is sourdough, maybe not, right? So that was normal. So that all that knowledge was passed from generation to generation. Nothing was outsourced. So it was the individual and the family unit, and then of course the extended the community that was creating the foundation of society, including how we ate.
Yeah, and then there's not only knowledge that's passed down, but there's just like an energetic ancestral history that I think is deep in our cells that is missing in all of the scientific knowledge that we have about nutrition in this country right now. So then you find yourself studying to be a dietitian. And I know from my own research, I follow the Weston A. Price Foundation and ancestral
Um,
eating in that way, that our nutrition education for dietitians is funded by a lot of big food, by big corporations.
yeah,
And so there are ulterior motives to some of the education that's out there. What were you thinking as you were getting this education?
I was going, wow, wow. For example, I remember, I think it was the first class I took, and I had to take few undergraduate courses that were not covered in terms of science, in my vet program. And one of them, I think, was life cycle nutrition. And the teacher was talking about bee pollen and some natural things that people would say, oh, these are beneficial. She would say, oh, those are not good. Those are, old folks' tales or something like that. And I would go like, wow, wow, that was the only vitamin I took growing up. I was never sick. Of course, it's the N1 me, which you can make generalized anything based on one individual. Growing up, the whole entire population, that's what we had because we didn't have synthetic vitamins, and we all knew bees produce the even stinging, getting stung by a bee. We knew it helps with whatever inflammation and pain. Yeah, it hurts on the moment, but it's actually beneficial for you. So we grew up very, very different regarding medical treatments, food, all of that. So going to school, I always said I will take what works for me, what makes sense, and I will leave the rest. And my goal is to have, to have a degree to get my Florida license so I can work. Hence, I didn't work too long for the hospital because philosophy wise, I wasn't aligned. But even when I worked as an outpatient and I would consult patients with diabetes and heart disease and obesity, always, I wasn't following the strict guidelines. I always encourage them to use common sense because if we allow ourselves to use common sense and to think how, okay, this is how I grew up. Maybe this is what my mom did the best she could, but how was her mother? What was she doing? Or her grandmother? So, yeah, I had to make the best out of what the education provided. That's why I moved into the functional nutrition, and of course Western Aid Prize Foundation follow their work. I think they encourage a lot of tradition. I've made kind of a distinction between traditional eating and ancestral eating,
Mm.
thinking that ancestral eating goes far back, more
Uh,
to our ancestors when they're hunting and
right.
gathering. They were nomads going to find food before agriculture set in, when people realized, oh, there are seasons. Stay in one place for this long of a time, we can actually grow crops. So once agriculture set in, everything began to change in human health because the
Mhm.
nutrition started to change. So that's the distinction I make, at least in my own head and when I talk to my clients. Ancestral is how we are wired biologically. We didn't change much in terms of biology, the way we absorb nutrients, what nourishes the physical body. It's just the biology doesn't change as rapidly as the environment changes. And then traditional eating is what Western A Price encourages. And the way I grew up is learning how to make things from scratch, preferably
Mhm.
foods that you grow or somebody grows in your local area and they are in season. So you avoid eating things that come from far away, they're voided of nutrients.
Right.
So I don't know. Personally, I go shopping. I don't buy tomatoes if they're not local and in season. I feel like I'm wasting money. They don't
Mm,
taste like anything. They just look like tomatoes. Again, I think with once you slow down and you begin to question a little bit, okay, I have all this abundance of food around me. It looks good, all green and purple and red and all the beautiful colors, but where is it coming from? How fresh it is? What am I getting from this food? Is it worth to put my money in this, or is it better to put my money in something that's local and not so often available, or maybe learn how to preserve when I have something local to preserve so I have it for the winter, or buy the protein that's more nourishing than the plant that's coming from New Zealand, and I think that gives me something. So it's education, it's introspection, it's weighing pros and cons.
I'm curious to dig into that a little bit more because I feel like we've gotten so far away from our intuition in so many different ways in our lives, but especially when it comes to food and with other things for that matter, we approach them as problems to be solved. And I've done that in my own life when it comes to food. I've never been thin. I've always had problems with my weight. Again, problems. And I'm like, okay, well, let me try this to solve this problem. Let me try. And then that doesn't work. And sometimes then that creates another problem that then needs to be fixed. And I'm at this point in my life now where I don't want to look at things as problems to be solved because I think that gets us away from our true inner knowing. Have you had thoughts about that in your own life and with clients and getting away from problem solving and merging it and turning it into something else?
It's a good it's a good way to look at it, because if everything is a problem, then it's a struggle that comes with the problem.
Right. Right.
Ideally, we want to find the flow, the path of least resistance. So here is where we bring in the mindset
Mhm.
piece, because as long as we continue to look at what's missing, what's wrong, what's not there, we are operating from a lower energetic point or lower consciousness level, which I believe your audience is familiar with this term, the consciousness. The consciousness is the energy from which we operate. It's what is our default way of seeing what's around. Because if I take a glass, which is kind of dark, you can't see through, you may look at the part that's full, or you may look at the part that's empty. Do you see what's missing from the glass, or do you see what you already have in the glass?
Mhm.
So that's something that we have to train ourselves, first of all, to recognize what's our default way of looking at the world. Do we always see, again, what's missing, what's not there, or we see what we already have and we find ways to grow from where we are? That's a mind shift that we have to, and have, haves and shoulds and all that. I don't necessarily resonate with this word, but I can't think of a better way of saying it. It's the mindset that comes first. Once we are aware of the way we think by default, now we can choose to look at the other side to see what we already have that's working, how even the excess weight served a purpose in our life to thank, because is most likely there to protect us from something else. It may
Mm.
not be beneficial to the physical body, but is protecting something in the emotional or spiritual realm, because it's more than the physical body. In fact, the physical body is such a small percentage from what we are as human beings.
Hmm.
So we can start to shift the present physical reality by shifting the mind, by living with gratitude for what we have, and from a state of gratitude to begin to take actions, because the actions will be different. It's not going to feel like I'm solving a problem and I'm choosing this particular food versus the other one, or when I choose to go for a walk versus sitting in front of the TV and watching a show. Nothing wrong with that. But there are times when it's beneficial to watch a show, and there are times when it's more beneficial to go for a walk, be outdoors. And does this make sense?
So I like to believe that nothing in this world is inherently good or inherently bad that comes with food. There are things that kind of lower our vibration, raise our vibration, but these judgments of good and bad in my own life seem to kind of get in the way sometimes. And I love what you said about, it is okay to sometimes sit and veg out and watch a show, right? And then but it's a matter of listening and getting into that flow. What kinds of practices do you have in your own life that connect you to that flow?
They always change. It's a good question, and it's always hard to give the answer because, as you probably do, have lots of practices in your toolbox. And I guess it's the flow and the intuition that makes me take different ones out of the toolbox. So it depends. Sometimes I do tapping, which that's pretty staple just about
Just
every morning.
yeah, describe to the listeners what tapping is.
I'm not doing necessarily the tapping, the emotional freedom technique tapping. I do that too, but that I use it mostly like a intervention. Like if something is like out of control, then I would tap to help me release. But in terms of like just for flow, to help me center and be in a flow, I would do the lymphatic tapping, where I tap on the lymphatic nodes to
Okay.
help the flow, the lymph flow, but with that also the chi flows. So I tap on the different lymph nodes
Okay.
of the whole body. I do like bounces. It's just to just kind of get the body moving and going. A practice that I also do in the morning, I try to do like a neuro grounding. What does it mean? I try to connect all five senses to here and now. When I get up in the morning, again, it depends. Sometimes I lie in bed and I just go through my affirmations to set the day. And then before I get out of bed and walk, go brush my teeth, wash my face, all that, I would sit on the edge of the bed and think of five sounds, try to name five sounds around me. Then with the eyes open, four things I can see. So because this engages the senses, so it grounds me to the moment. And then three things I feel, and two things I smell and or taste, or one of each. So all five senses, which is sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste, I try to bring them or open them up to the day. And when I
Mm.
do that, it helps me wake up. I'm more present to, rather than being like drowsy and oh my gosh, where is the bathroom kind of a
Uh-huh.
thing. Especially when the night is not restful, the sleep, or I have to get up earlier, things like that. But those are good practices to help you just be present and grounded. And then
And
of
in your
course
body
setting
too.
in your body, exactly. That you engage the body, the sight with the body for the day. Setting the intention for the day is crucial. How do
Hmm.
I want this day to go? And then at night, doing the gratitude. I'm grateful for. And throughout the day, affirmations always. So I feel like living without intention is like getting in a car, taking an Uber or taking a taxi and just telling him to drive you around. with no aim. You wouldn't get in a taxi without saying, I want to get to the airport or I want to get to the store.
Mhm.
So it goes for every lived day. In the morning, we want to set up the intention for the day. The night before, when we go to sleep, we can set the intention for the rest, restful night, and how the day. We gotta create the day by setting the expectations, the positive expectations. So those, by doing those things, then it helps go within and be more connected, your body with your intentions and with what happens. And of course, breathing, always be mindful of your breathing. When you find yourself breathing shallow, you're stressed. You are in
Mhm.
that fight, flight, or freeze. So you gotta want to slow down your breath. And I'm a huge fan of nasal breathing in and out through your nose. Mouth taping. If you want a good night rest, tape the mouth at night when you go to sleep. You would be shocked by the improvement in the quality of sleep.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. And I do them depending on the how much time I have and what I I feel like, because it has to come with ease. If it's a chore, if it's like,
Right.
oh, I have to put it on my to-do list.
You have to do it in the flow. If it's logical, then you're in your head and not in
Right.
your body.
You have to see how you feel. So the idea is to start somewhere. Maybe you don't have any practice right now. I don't know. Like you probably have a spectrum on your audience, a spectrum. Some that are just starting the self-care process and self-love through action. Some are advanced. But let's say you are just starting and you don't have anything, you just leave because that's how it is. You go to work, you wake up in the morning, take care of kids, come back, cook, clean, all that. So it's very easy to for the
Survive.
day to
Yeah.
go and
Right.
not to put yourself in the equation at all. That's
Mhm.
not difficult. So you have to start somewhere and it has to come with ease. So you may start learning. You listen to different podcasts like yours and others, and you hear different people, women, men, sharing what they do. Find role models and start to create your own tool of self-care practices that help you get more in touch with your body, with your intuition, become more aware of your default way of thinking, your mindset, and then pick one
Mm.
and go with it and see how it works. Easy ones are affirmations, super easy and super powerful gratitude.
Yeah.
Living in gratitude doesn't leave room for sadness and for woe me. We want to live empowered, not in a victimhood. And when you're empowered, then you make different choices than when you are the victim. Oh, I'm the victim of the supermarket. I'm the victim of the system. I'm the victim of the government. We can't be victims and rise. We got to wake up from victimhood, step into an empowered state. And again, it starts with one small action. And once this one small action is part of you, it becomes a habit. Then you can add another one. And then you may have 3, 4, 5, 6 different practices, and you just go through them as you feel. Sometimes I feel like tapping and jumping. Sometimes I just do affirmations again with the certain affirmation with the tapping, the actual EFT, which
Mhm.
is anybody can search emotional freedom technique or tapping in short. And it has the points. It taps on the acupuncture points, pressure puncture points of the usually the upper body from the brow line to the top of the head. And it moves again. It's about moving the energy. Everything is energy. Health is an abundance of energy. Disease is lack of energy. And when we talk about that, we think about the energy that it's present at the cellular level, and we think about the energy field that flows through the body, like the chi of life. So the first step in getting your life together is to move the energy. And you can do that by going for walks. You can do that through certain types of breathing. You can do that with actual tapping or with the lymphatic, because when you tap the lymphatic, and I can share that. I have like a freebie
Yeah.
that walks someone, whoever
Yeah.
watches it through the lymphatic points and how to tap it. It's fun. And I combine that with the whole Ponopono phrase, the I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. That's also a phrase that It just goes through my head. It just
Mhm.
runs through. When I drink water, that's how I clear the water with the phrase.
Mm.
It's just my default pause.
It's setting the intention with every little thing that you're doing.
Sounds like a lot, but that's because it's been so many years of learning and acquiring practices. Again, I use some of them I use all the time consistently because they are easy. Some of them I have to say, oh, I haven't done this in a long time. I want to go back to it. But it's always setting intentions, gratitude and affirmation are part of every day.
Going back to food for a minute, I always like to think about the love that's in food. In food, you can taste love in food. And I think back to my grandfather who used to make Thanksgiving dinner and Easter dinner. And there was so much love in his food. And I make the joke that love is butter because he would also put a lot of butter in his food. But when you think about it, it's the intention. It's the, I'm dedicating this time to create this beautiful meal for my family. And then thinking back to what you were saying about the community aspect and the family aspect of food in Romania, where you're passing down recipes. So there was love in the original creation of it. And there was love when that recipe was passed down through generation and generation and generation. And so there's just so much positive energy that can be in food. And then conversely, when you pick up a box of cereal at the grocery store, you can feel it, you can taste it. You're like, okay, this satisfies this immediate need of hunger, but there's nothing else to it.
Well, so I want to actually, because you were mentioning before the good and bad, and I agree with you in terms of it's no good food or bad food, but we have to define what food is.
Yes.
Because what we call food today, most people in the, again, industrialized and now in the AI era, I would argue is not human food. So that's a great distinction to make and clarification. Every presentation I make on nutrition, I always start with this. What is food? Because what we find in the grocery stores today, like in the center where we have all the packaged foods, is 99% not food. It's processed stuff that we learn to call it food, but is not the food that the human body thrives on. It may get by with for a certain amount of years. That's hence the increase in chronic diseases. If we look at trends, we can see the introduction of processing and ultra processing of foods, the introduction of the seed oils. They all go in parallel with the increase in chronic diseases. So we suffer today. If we're to look at the physical aspect, we suffer today because we no longer, as a society, eat foods that are meant for humans. We are far remote from traditional eating and even farther from ancestral eating. Because if you think ancestrally, they ate food whenever they were able to hunt, and when they hunted the animals. They ate the whole animal, with usually fatty animals, because fat provides the energy that body needs. Once in a while, depending on where they were on planet Earth, they gathered. They had berries, they had roots. Food was scarce. It was no regularity. The regularity in eating started to settle a little bit with agriculture when they ate early in the morning, probably midday when they ran away from the sun. They couldn't work in the field, and then they had the later supper. But then with the industrialization, then it came all these set meals and snacks, because now it became more robotons. So as the way we acquire food changed, so it changed the food itself. So it's not food. So going back to good or bad, I won't call it bad. I will not call it food. All the process, the things that are loaded with chemicals you can't even read, or they have this many ingredients. Who has the patience to read that? I don't. So if we simplify and we go to eat closer to traditional, again, local, seasonal, find the local market or the grocery store that brings from as much as possible local. And we buy the whole foods that we recognize. Usually they don't require a food label because it's just the whole food. Then That's the first step in reclaiming health and energy. And then from there, if person really is advanced in health decline, then they can go more ancestral and do a little bit of fasting and intermittent fasting and cut back on the carbs, even though they may be whole foods, because again, all these carbs, they come with agriculture, they come with settlement, they are newer in human history, 10,000 years versus hundreds or millions of evolution before, if we go the evolution route, which you're right, is no good or bad, is just food and non-food.
I think the most powerful thing that I've done that's helped me get in touch with my relationship with food and with the energy behind food is doing long fasting. And there are positive and negatives to that as well, because it's a stress on the body. But I've gone 5.5 days, I think is the longest time that I've done with a water fast. And what you learn in doing that is that these signals in our body, like that hunger, that rumble, it goes away, that you don't have to listen to it. And it teaches you to have that pause, and that same kind of pause that you're talking about in setting an intention, the pause when you first wake up in the morning, the pause before you close your eyes to go to sleep. We don't pause at all. We think that, okay, well, it's been 3 hours, my stomach is rumbling, it's time to eat. And we don't stop to drink a glass of water or just even see if that feeling is going to stay or if it will then go away. We give so much power to these immediate feelings, and then it becomes difficult to differentiate between these feelings and an intuition. And then I think that we kind of like mix those up. Like, okay, well, if I'm supposed to be listening to my body says I'm hungry right now, so I'm going to eat. Do you help clients kind of sort out the difference between those things?
Yes. So I call it ride the wave of hunger. First of all, the body, it's a biological machine. What machines are efficient. We are biological in the sense that we are flesh and blood and chemistry, but the body wants to be efficient. It wants to save energy. It wants to learn the rituals. So if you always eat at 8, at 10, at 1, at 5, at 7, and at 10 p.m. again, your body learns that. Your body will give you a signal. Hey, you taught me that this is the time when I receive something. Now, what are you doing? So, yes, the body is speaking to you, but it's speaking in response to you training the body. So now you have to unlearn. So you have to unlearn the idea that you gotta eat, I don't know, 5 times a day, 3 meals and 2 snacks, right? And your body has to unlearn this pattern. So
Yeah.
for that, you have to ride those waves of hunger. So just like you train your body to eat often, you can train your body to eat 2 meals a day. No big deal. You can train your taste buds to like sauerkraut just as you train your taste buds to like donuts. No big deal. It's all learning. Again, we are a very efficient biological machine. But what guides this machine again is our mind, our mindset. So it begins with the mindset. Once you're not afraid that you're gonna die if you don't eat 3 times a day, let alone less, and you're okay to fast, even water fast longer than, I don't know, average people are afraid to fast from meal to meal. But to go 2, 3, 5, 7 days, once you go past the fear and you allow yourself, it begins with the mind, it begins with the thought, then you're willing to try, and then you would be surprised. And the first time is more difficult, but then the second time it becomes a bit easier, and the third time even easier. And you develop new practices which are
Mhm.
beneficial for you. And again, if you look at ancestors, they went from feast to famine. At least that's what we learn from studying history, human history. That's how I help women understand. First, you have to go past the fear, which comes with the false information. So you've got to unlearn, and then redefine. Redefine, give new definitions, give new meaning to everything, and then you experiment with it, and then your body will give you signals again, and there is a phase of transitioning from where you are to where you want to get, And the first phase is like go climbing up the hill. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy. You have to, again, always remind yourself why you are doing it. Do it from a place of empowerment, not of victimhood, from a place of I'm choosing this. I wasn't told to do it. If you do it because somebody tells you to do it, it's not going to last, not going to be fun. You got to be the observer of your own life and do it with curiosity.
There's so much conversation now about longevity and healthy aging. What kinds of things have you integrated into your own life when it comes to healthy aging?
Great question, especially because I'm past half half life expectancy. So when I think of longevity, I think of living for as long as I live to have the quality of life that allows me to do all the things I enjoy doing. I enjoy doing them now. I enjoy doing them 10 years or 20 years ago, and I will enjoy in the future. So I call it functional aging. I want to keep all my functions. I do not want to accept, because this again, this is collective belief with all buy into. As you grow older, you have decay sets in, and you have to start, slouching down and having lists of diagnoses and bags of drugs that you manage yourself before you die. There is a concept in medicine called the squaring of morbidity. So instead of we go up, right? We are young, we go up, then we reach a plateau, and then we have a slow decline. And you have 40 years of, doctor visits and medications and treatments. And I hear this a lot. Oh, I need to live close to the hospital. I never think about that. I don't want to live close to a hospital. I don't want to need to think that way.
Yeah.
So that's like setting yourself up, because the closer to the hospital you are, the easier it is to go to the doctor when you're sick. I don't sign up. I don't want to sign up for that. So the squaring of morbidity and mortality is you go up, you have a plateau, and then boop, sudden death. So you maintain that vitality until the day you close your eyes, sleep, and go. Transition. That's how I look at longevity. Now, would it be that 100 years or 80 or 70? I don't even know if it matters, as long as you have that vitality for as long as you live and you can do all the things you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So that was about longevity. The other question, healthy aging. I think that kind of is part of it. I want to live long if I'm healthy. And indeed, I would like to find a society that would say, no, we don't have to age or look, decayed, wrinkled, and with no muscle tone and vitality when you're 80 or 90. Here, the Tibetans, they have those monks that are like that, or in the tribes of, I don't know, in Africa or in Amazon, where they're 80, 90 and they still climb trees and they are very vital. So what I'm trying to say is that if more humans would have a different vision of what it means to be older, not the one that media puts with, injections and all that, just naturally, organically, to age gracefully, to keep the vitality, I feel like we could change the way we age. But because everybody buys into this paradigm that we have to have glasses, we have to lose speed and agility and mental acuity and all that, I feel like we all age like that. I don't want to be part of that average, but I don't know what's going to be. So I think as individuals, each one of us can feel empowered and choose to believe that we can age differently than we saw our mothers or grandmothers. And to move to the next step, we got to find examples in real life of people who beat the odds. And we would be the next one to be the odds. And eventually enough would be the odds where we would shift how we see aging. For instance, in the carnivore community, there is a lady, I think she's in her 80s. She literally, when you see her in pictures, I've never seen her face to face. When you see her pictures, she looks like she's, I don't know, maybe 40. She has two ponytails. She's very lean. She doesn't have like super wrinkled face. So I'm like, Yeah, it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do wrinkles matter? No, we all eventually get wrinkles. I don't know how much wrinkles matter, but what it matters is the vitality.
Right.
Is how you see yourself, how you act, and how much energy for life you have. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that is healthy aging. How do we achieve that? Food, lifestyle, mindset,
Exactly.
all these three elements.
Mihaela, this has been so much fun. I am so grateful to have this time with you. Are there things that are coming up for you that you're really excited about?
Excited to see what the next part of my journey would
And so you
be
you
like,
host
how it unfolds.
with your clients and with your business. Sometimes you have groups, right? Are there any like upcoming group projects that you have or gatherings that you have coming up?
I don't have anything scheduled. I am thinking to start a group around metabolic health. I'm not big into gadgets, but every so often I'm trying to find ways to help because what we see and measure acts as an accountability, external accountability partner, and it helps with the process of changing food and lifestyle and habits. So, like now I'm wearing again a glucose monitoring sensor. So I'm thinking maybe I will start a group. I'll invite women if they want to. I'm not an affiliate with the company. I'm just trying different sensors to see which one is more user friendly. If women want to monitor to help, metabolic health has a lot to do with how we control our glucose.
Right.
Glucose is a source of energy for the body, but it doesn't have to be the only source of energy. Fat is a better source of energy. So the way we eat today supplies too much easy energy for the body, and that affects energy and hormones and mood and all that. So wearing a device like this gives a feedback to you into your choices, what you eat, your sleep, your exercise, and having an immediate feedback helps reinforce the choices that are good and let go of the ones that are not so good. So I'm thinking I would probably want to have a group with women who want to do something in the physical realm using the glucose monitoring system
Mhm.
as a external immediate feedback and accountability and doing it as a group.
Have you learned anything surprising by wearing the glucose monitor?
I've been using many times. It's not the first time I'm using this. I do on and off. There's no surprise if you're sleep deprived because cortisol goes up, you would have higher glucose. When you do high intensity exercise, it's a stressor. You would have higher elevation in blood glucose, but it's not bad. It's bad if it's chronic. The highest comes obviously from foods, especially the refined carbs, fruits. But what you want to see is how flexible your metabolism is. In other words, you eat something that is normal to see more glucose in your blood, but how high it goes and how quickly the body normalizes it. Because if it goes way high out of proportion and it takes a long time to normalize, then you can see, oh, there's a problem. The system that's supposed to control this flood of glucose is not working. So I need to look at which is the insulin in that case. So
Mm.
it helps. It helps people, especially if you've never done it. I think it's very beneficial. It gives a lot of information into what is affecting you, what's the immediate change you can make is within your power. Because again, knowledge is potential power. Once you have the knowledge, if you act upon, then here you have the power. And without knowing, it's hard to do it. So for
Exactly.
that, I like to do this and run a battery of labs that look at metabolic health, inflammation, oxidative damage, hormones, and then use the monitor for 3 months. And then at the end, evaluate to see how it helps one take charge of their health, feel empowered to make different choices. So that's what I've been contemplating to do more on to go a little bit back more to nutrition, and then of course we always sprinkle in the thoughts and the mindset because that's kind of a big umbrella. Without the mindset, you can't do. So that's what's in my mind. And then I'm slowly working on translating my book to Romanian, and I I'm waiting for an AI that would record it, so I have an audio version. I cannot put myself
Yeah.
together to record it, to have the audio. Who knows? Maybe it will
That's
happen.
so, yeah, that's so fascinating. So your book, Make Peace with Fat, how would that resonate differently in Romania than it has here in the United States?
I think it would resonate pretty well because Romania, since communism was abolished and food industry
I jumped right in.
developed, yes, the younger generations are having to relearn what we all grew up with. So it would probably land pretty well,
Yeah.
I think.
That's
for me.
exciting. And it's exciting that the technology is advancing so quickly in so many different ways to give us more knowledge, to give us more information so that we can then make better decisions and integrate everything.
For sure. I think it's no shortage of information. If anything, I think it's an overload on information. Maybe that's what makes difficult listening to our own body and picking something to go with because it's so much information and it's so conflicting.
Mhm.
So for
Mhm.
the average person, I think it's very difficult to choose because is it vegan? Is it vegetarian? Eggs are good, butter is good. No, it's bad. Is coconut oil bad? No, the seed oils are good, not bad. Processed foods are not a problem. I mean, we hear so much conflicting information, So if you're pulled in 10 directions and you can't find your center, it's difficult to act from a state of overwhelm. Find someone you trust and stick with one or two people before you learn where you stand, what's working for you. And I always say, look to the ancestral eye. If you think how our ancestors lived, what they had available, we wouldn't be here if meat was bad for us.
Right. Right.
We wouldn't be here as species. We wouldn't be here if fasting was to kill us. We wouldn't be here. So less is more, even when
Yeah.
it comes to food.
And I love the focus of your book because that was kind of an entryway for me where I'm like, well, if our brains are made out of fat and fat just feels so good, how can it be completely bad? Like the
So
food
bad.
industry has told us it's bad. It just doesn't make any logical sense. And going back to the butter in my grandfather's cooking, butter feels like love.
Yep, it does. I agree. I love I love butter. Yeah, like you cook eggs in butter, so good.
And some
So
people don't even some people never experience that actually because we've had this fat
fear.
phobic mentality.
Again, it
Yeah.
goes back to fear from false information. So that's why we have to unlearn, redefine,
Mhm.
experiment. But the cure, that's a method I created working with clients. Find your cure. C stands for connect.
Mm.
Connect to your body, connect to community, connect to your intention, connect. And if you're disconnected, if you're not grounded into something, can go. You gotta be connected to where you are. Even
Mm.
connect to where you are right now in your life. Don't be in what's the word? Denial. Just connect, accept. So that's the first step. Connect. Then unlearn. Gotta unlearn because there's so much that's just not serving you
Yeah.
and keeps you trapped in fear. Then redefine. Redefine. Create a new vision. Redefine what food is. Redefine what health and longevity means to you. Redefine what menopause means to you because it
Mhm.
doesn't mean what everybody tells you, right? Redefine. And then experiment and elevate. With each experimentation, you would elevate to the next level. And that's your cure.
We have so much more agency than we realize. Mihaela, thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you.
energy and your wisdom with us. I'm just so grateful.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to Goddess in Training. I hope something in this episode stirred your knowing or softened your heart. If it spoke to you, share it with someone who needs it, or leave a review or comment to help others find us. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to hear more conversations like this, please consider supporting Goddess in Training on Patreon. For more tools and offerings to deepen your intuition practice, visit goddessintraining.online. You can also join the Scroll of Sashat on Substack for twice-weekly stories of how I followed my intuition. The music for Goddess in Training is Madre Ayahuasca by Arkawa, and you can find more of his music and the link to his website in the show notes. Remember, your intuition is not a mystery, it's a memory. Keep listening.
Resplandor de fuego, estrellita, tabaco,